Well, Allie, it's so nice to sit down and talk with you. I've been interested to chat with you because you're obviously an assistant principal, director of PD, professional development. You're really important in the discussion about what are we providing both teachers and administrators with regards to continuous learning? What are they looking for? Because on the market side, we see lots of changes and shifts, especially based on where dollars are going. What are you hearing from not just your building, but from those folks that you speak with around the country about what are they really looking for with regards to PD?
So I think when we look at professional development, we have done, a good amount of work in thinking about how to differentiate and personalize those experiences for our students and thinking about learning for them. But we haven't done as much work in really, as you said, thinking about our teachers' needs and how we personalize what a first-year teacher struggling with classroom management might need, as opposed to a veteran teacher who's really trying to refine and improve his or her practice over time. So one of the areas of need that I see for administrators currently is just more guidance on how you provide that personal experience. Because when you're looking at a single district or a single school even, the capacity to take on a project of that scope can be incredibly daunting.
Talk about the quality of PD. I think, well, two things. One, we've seen a change because of evaluation systems that have come online and they're connecting to PD and these professional growth plans. But I think that we were so used to, whether it was a good or a bad thing, sort of these stale offerings in PD around the nation where you kind of go, it's a cattle call, and some people get something, some don't. How do we, I should say, are we evaluating PD better now, do you think, because of some of these other components?
I think the first step is actually taking a step back and saying, well, what is the purpose of evaluation? Is the purpose of evaluation to provide a score and just measure how teachers are doing, or is the real purpose to help our teachers grow and to help them get better? And can that actually be a data point and a jumping off point for developing really high quality professional development? Thinking about some of those one-off professional developments or the, sit all together in the auditorium for a day and you might get a few good strategies, but most of what you've learned is forgotten by November, just simply can't continue if we're going to adequately meet our students' needs. So one of the things that I do in my work, both at the school level, but then in also collaborating with other school leaders, is really pushing ourselves to think about how we create more sustained opportunities for learning for our teachers that go beyond the one-day experience, that give them an opportunity to think about their specific areas of growth and work with a professional learning community around a single topic or multiple topics if they're interested in that, but then really dig into the application piece so that they're walking away not just with ideas, but with practices and strategies that they can implement, sometimes even the very next day in their classroom.
What are the top 2 or 3 topics that you're hearing, at least from the teacher side, that they want? Is it technology? Is it flipped learning we hear a lot about? What are they sort of clamoring for?
So some of our new teachers are still struggling with how to provide their students with good feedback that's specific, that's meaningful, that's really going to push student learning to the next level. And then I would say with our more experienced teachers, there is an interest in technology, in delving into areas such as flipped classroom. And there's also an interest in really understanding what's going to motivate students. So what are the different mindsets or triggers, if you will, that are going to get kids to buy into the learning process and to see it as an authentic experience for them.
So when I hear that, I hear components of the relationship between a teacher and a student, yet we sort of live in this world where we want to quantify everything. But that's the one area that's so hard to be able to sort of put in a box and say, that's what a good relationship looks like between a teacher and a student. Is there a way to deliver PD that helps that more often than not?
I think having teachers work together in groups so that they get to experience those relationships for themselves and not just see it as a nebulous concept. But then also sort of how you move beyond the relationship with your students. Once you have that relationship fostered, what are some of the ways that you can push your kids in ways that you might not be able to otherwise to develop things like grit or a growth mindset or the resilience to overcome challenges when they hit those roadblocks in their learning?
Tell me about, I know you've got the Learning Loop website and you like to connect with other educators in that sense. I get to talk with lots of educators that are interested in having their own sort of presence in social media and to be a beacon of resources. How did you come about that and finally make that decision? Because I think once you make it, I find that most folks want to stick to it because they feel a sense of responsibility when people look to them for guidance. So what advice do you have for those that are starting to think about it in the same ways that maybe you did?
So I came to it in a place where I was a teacher in a classroom that didn't have professional development that was very personalized for me, and instead, sought out a lot of books and different resources. There wasn't as many opportunities online as there are now to form some of those professional learning networks, as well as explore some online resources. So it really grew out of a passion for me personally as something that I had as a need, and then I felt like it was almost my responsibility in a way to share some of those resources and opportunities with other newer teachers who were looking for ways to fill some of the skill gaps that they had self-identified for themselves. But one of the things that I think is important to recognize when collecting those materials and sharing them with teachers is to move beyond the theory. Teachers don't have time. It's great to learn all of the background information and why certain things may work, but at the end of the day, they want something practical that they can turn around and use in their classroom the next day.
Are you seeing that where a lot of folks are doing that in social media and websites, that they're doing more theory-based? I mean, is that a challenge?
I'm seeing a lot of good ideas, but not a lot of ways to put them in practice. So, this is an idea and this works with kids, but then what's the actual tool or the lesson plan or even the graphic organizer, if you will, that's going to help me take that idea and really put it into practice in my own classroom?
What's your recommendation for people who sit there and say, there are so many resources that I don't even know? I'm almost afraid to sort of open the laptop because that's a rabbit hole that just is so hard to organize into my life as an educator because there's so much going on. So what advice do you have? Do you have like only a certain number of sites that you go to? Do you limit yourself? How do you make those decisions?
I would say prioritize, really think in 3 or 6 month chunks. What is the area that I want to learn the most in during this time period? Because you're naturally going to move from site to site as you explore different links. But I think if you have that topical focus to really say, okay, during this quarter, I'm really going to dig into differentiation, and I'm going to become better at developing these types of tasks for my students. That really helps to focus not just the topics that you're searching for, but then also some of the different tools that you might be reaching for as well. Over time, you do develop a set of go-to sites, if you will, or go-to individuals within your professional learning network that you come to depend on in certain areas. But sometimes that is time, and it is a process because, much like students, adults have different learning styles, and meeting each of those styles can be a difficult task at times.
I know you've done a lot of presenting and talks on personalized learning. Are we to the point now, I know it's been a buzzword, and I get the sense sometimes that if you ask somebody and you say, do you know what personalized learning is? They say, oh, of course. But it does seem a little bit nebulous, and you kind of think, well, how are we really applying that in the classroom? Right? Have you seen an evolution with the term personalized learning or that phrase, and are we getting to a point where it's just commonplace?
It's definitely not commonplace. I think there's a lot of distinctions that need to be made between what's differentiated, what's individualized, and then what's actually personalized. So a lot of times teachers will adjust either the materials or the speed of different concepts, but still have the same goals for all kids, and that's more of a differentiated approach. Or they'll just adjust the speed in an individualized way. But true personalization really gets at the core that different kids are going to have different goals, and that's okay. We want them to have those different starting points at times, and then of course the materials and the strategies and the pacing that comes with it. But our kids have so many personalized experiences outside of school. You turn on iTunes and it recommends 100 different songs related to the ones you've already downloaded. You turn on Netflix and it does the same thing. It even emails you when a new movie comes out that they think you might like. But then we look to school and it's often not personalized for our students. And in order to keep our students invested long term, I think that's something we need to give some serious attention to.
Speaking of that, I would be curious, because we were talking off air just about family, and I have young kids, and it has definitely changed my perspective of everything from policy to what we're really seeing in the classroom. And I know you're going to be a mom for the third time. How is being a mom impacted the way you've looked at education and the responsibility you feel to push through when it's the 11th hour and it's been a long week and you're tired and those sorts of things? I don't think we talk enough about the impact that being a parent can have on our own work and education.
I've definitely thought more about children developmentally and how we support the whole child. So looking not just at the academics, but then those motivation pieces and those emotional pieces, because they do have a huge impact on the capacity that our students have to learn. And I think that's the biggest area that being a mother has influenced my professional work, is really thinking about, children that feel safe, but that also feel challenged when they need to in the classroom.